Welcome to the Unleashing Leaders podcast, where we work with willing leaders to accelerate the changes you seek. We'll learn from the experiences of different leaders facing real challenges and distill practical, purposeful steps to apply in your context. I'm Lee Scott, your curious co-pilot. Together, let's make positive changes for our companies and communities. Hello, and welcome to the Unleashing Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Lee Scott. Today, we're going to change it up a little bit, take a break from interviewing our fantastic guest and do a shorter segment, taking a very specific slice of one particular leadership model and doing a little bit of a deep dive on it. We're going to be choosing from a smattering of different models and techniques and methods that we have found to be very powerful and come up frequently when we're tackling certain challenges and changes that leaders might be seeking. We're going to start off with one of my timeless favorites. I learned this from Tony Robbins. And this is one of those models that probably is in my heads up display when I'm in a conversation or interacting with other leaders 6 or 7 times a week. This is one that I very, very frequently am using to kind of seek to better understand a situation and use it to be able to show up in a more powerful and effective way in that moment. The model itself is referred to as the 6 fundamental human needs. There's a bunch of variations of this out there. This is the one that I found to be most practical and easy for me to apply in a purposeful fashion. But it's an evolution of what was first described as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where it was like, okay, there's 5 needs. And in order to progress to the next level needs, you had to meet some more fundamental needs. And I think there's a lot of credibility still to this day in that model. I think what they've found is they've done further studies when you look at examples that kind of break the model is that it's not as rigorously linear. It's not like some folks will willingly sacrifice a lower level need like their physical safety in the pursuit of an emotional need or a social need or a self-actualization need. This is a little bit more of an evolved model, and I think it allows for more of a unique fingerprint for each person that you might be inspiring or trying to influence. So I also think these are the 6 fundamental human needs in the sense that we all have them. They're present in every single one of us. I think what makes us different is the magnitude to which we prioritize these and how much of it we need to feel fulfilled. And I think the other thing that differentiates us is our strategies. There are very healthy strategies for meeting all of these needs, and there are very unhealthy strategies for meeting these needs. But how I use this model before I go into what it is when I'm in a conversation, what I'm seeking to understand, seeking to influence, seeking to serve, if I better understand what is driving that person's underlying needs. So Simon Sinek talks about start first with why, right? So this really is like the 6 whys that somebody might have. And again, an old model, it's been around for many, many years, but it comes in a set of 6 so that I can understand what's driving them. And then by better understanding those needs, I'm going to be able to customize the areas that I focus on to be able to be what's in it for them, that WIIFM, in a more personalized and concentrated dose so that I'm making sure that I'm hitting those top needs in a very unambiguous fashion and tying whatever it is that we're working on to those, because I want to naturally draw out more of the energy and the motivation that is already there. And I think that's what makes leaders, the inspiration is where it comes from. You got to tap into something that's already there versus trying to put something in there that's not. So let's take a look at what these needs are. So the first need that often comes up is called certainty. And this is the need for security, control, safety, predictability, the ability to know what's coming down the pipeline. And again, all of us have this need. We want to make sure that we're able to have some control and we have some predictability about our lives. By the same token, this isn't the only need that all of us have, because if we had complete security and control over everything, then we'd get really bored really quickly. But some people have a deeper need for this than they do for some of the other ones. The match set to this one is uncertainty or variety. Variety is the need for freedom, adventure, agility, flexibility, to mix things up. Most of us would not like to eat the exact same meal for every single dinner, right? We want a little variety in there. We want to, travel to different places. We want to have different challenges. And here it's just different for different sake. And that's the need for variety. Now, each of these are provided as like a match set. However, it's not like you're either one or the other. You can have somebody who has a very high need for certainty and a high need for variety. They want to have absolute control over the variety of the things that they're working on. They're not polar opposites. It's not like a Myers-Briggs where you're either on one end of the spectrum or the other or somewhere in between. These are all independent. The next 2 are significance. So this is the need to feel worthwhile and to have credibility and to have self-worth and be important. This is your reputation. This is how others view you. And again, we all have some degree of ego that is important for us to be able to survive. So that's the need for significance. This is saying that, hey, who I am and what I do matters. That's a need we all have. Again, some people have a much stronger need to have this filled, or maybe a need to have it filled first. And others are like, yeah, as long as my mama loves me, I'm good to go. So again, you have a range of how much of this need you might have, but it is an important need. The next one is connection. Connection is the need to belong, to be a part of a tribe, to have relationships with other human beings. We're all social animals, and even the most sociopathic of us still would not want to be in solitary confinement for the rest of our lives. So, this is where love and connection and community and doing things for your family, for your friends, for your nation. This is where that sense of I belong to something. And again, we all have a need for this. Some of us have a much stronger need than others. The next two are growth. Growth is the need to learn and to develop and to gain, right? Gain responsibility to expand our areas of authority or responsibility. So growing, right? Whether it's in knowledge or power or resources or land or reputation to be able to be expanding. We like to learn, we like to develop, we like to grow. This is a super, super typical need for a lot of folks, well, for all of us. Again, some people, man, they are just addicted to growing. They want to be constantly learning. This is definitely one of my strong ones. My curiosity really taps into me there, but that's a strong need. And then lastly is contribution. And this is the need to give. So to serve, to make a difference, whether anybody knew you were there or not. And so that's the difference. Significance might be, I want credit for what happened. Contribution is what I want to know that I helped make it happen, whether anybody else does or not. So sometimes they can be very similar, but have totally different origins in terms of their drive. So certainty is the need for things to be the same. Variety is the need for things to be different. Significance is for me. Connection is for we. Growth is to gain. Contribution is to give. And again, each of us have all of these to some degree present in our lives and at different times and places and conditions. Maybe these have been met for many years. So you take it for granted. You're not worried about it. And then suddenly your conditions change and suddenly something becomes much more important to that person's core value. Now, when you think about core values and whys, again, these are like the grandparents of them. All the other permutations can kind of stem from these six. So the question then is, how do you use this? What does this have to do with leadership? Well, as a leader, one of the fundamental skills is to be able to help provide meaning and to help inspire and help people feel fulfilled and be wanting to recruit and enroll and contribute to a cause that's making something happen, whether that cause is to just get the kid to mow the lawn or to transform the government. So whatever that particular goal is, this is the sources of fuel that will drive somebody to be able to sustain effort in the pursuit of that goal. So what I'll do is I'll listen as somebody's talking to me and they're sharing with me what matters to them, or I'll say, hey, what are you challenged by this? Or what are your goals? What are your aspirations? Or how do you feel about this? Or what excites you about this? And they'll give you a ton of clues about which of these six needs is kind of like their top two, because some of these will be deeper and more just compelling. And others will be like, yeah, that's nice too, but I'm already having that need met, or it's just not as important to me. A thimble full and I'm good to go. So somebody who's talking about certainty will talk about, hey, we need to be control. We need to have consistency. We want to make sure that we're providing a real high quality. I want to make sure that we know what's coming, that we are masters of our own destiny, right? We're not being victims of somebody else. So these are all indicators of a high certainty need. Somebody that's looking at like, hey, let's mix things up. Let's try something different. Let's innovate. Let's experiment. Let's play around with this. Let's kind of riff and jazz on it and see what comes out. That's a clue that person has a higher relative need for variety. Significance, somebody would be like, hey, it's very important that I be treated with respect and that you honor my office, you honor my role, you honor my title. And again, this doesn't have to be glaring and flagrant. It could just be like, hey, make sure you treat me with respect and then I can treat you with respect. Connection is where it's about the we, right? It's like, we're talking about the team and the community and the customers and the partners, and it's about our people and somebody who's looking out after all of the folks there. That's a strong connection clue. Growth, they're looking for, hey, what can we do better? What can we do to improve? What can we do to expand our market share? What can we do to expand our range of services? What can we do to expand our responsibilities? So that's more of that growth drive clue. And then contribution is about the impact, right? Why it mattered. It made a difference. And it might make a difference for a community. It might make a difference for the environment. It might make a difference for the business, but it's all about like, hey, it's about making something better. So those are the clues that will let you know what somebody relatively values more highly. And then with that kind of individualized profile, whether it's an employee or a customer or a partner or my spouse or my kids, when I'm talking to them, I try to make sure that I'm speaking in their, like basically their love language, right? So their need language, as it were. So somebody that I'm trying to get on board with the change who's a high certainty, I'm going to focus on things like, hey, doing this is either we do it and we do it for ourselves, or we don't do it and somebody else will do it to us. And then we have no idea what could happen. It'll be completely out of control. Or being out of control is no fun. This is a way that we can get things back into control, or we can standardize, or we can stabilize, or we can have more predictability for this. That's going to really ignite and resonate to them, versus somebody that's more a high connection is like, hey, look, man, we're all just spinning around. We're not staying in alignment with each other. People are confused. It's frustrating for everybody. Their customers don't know what's going on. We want to make this happen so that we're all aware of what's happening. We're in this together. We're in alignment with each other. We're able to communicate more effectively with each other, right? Whereas certainty is going to want the consistency of the process. Connection is going to want the communication of the process. And again, those aren't mutually exclusive. It's just customizing how we portray or emphasize those different elements for that particular person in that given change. Now, there are, again, healthy ways of meeting these strategies, and there's not so healthy ways of meeting these strategies. So sometimes when you're trying to shift behaviors, maybe it's an employee where you're trying to motivate them to be able to do something differently. Maybe they're meeting that need that they have for significance or growth or whatever, but they're meeting it in an unhealthy way. So sometimes the challenge isn't saying, hey, it's the needs being met, but we want to be able to show how the strategy or the method or the change that we're proposing would actually be a more powerful way of meeting that need without some of the bad side effects. In counseling, this is what counselors are doing with somebody who's trying to break addictive behaviors or other unhealthy types of social behaviors. They have a way of meeting that need of significance or variety or whatever, but they're doing it in an unhealthy way. So we're trying to swap those out. So I might be in a conversation with a team member where they're like, hey, they like variety. And so they start a lot of things, but they don't really finish any of them. But the challenge with doing it that way is there's this downside that then your reputation takes a hit and your connection takes a hit. And they're like, I don't care about all those things. I just like variety. So me trying to sell them a different drug isn't going to do it. I got to sell them a better drug. This is a better way of being able to, hey, if you actually follow through on the assignment, that you will have greater freedom to be able to choose what your next assignments are. If you have a reputation of being able to complete these assignments, then more people are going to want to have you be on this team, and they're going to want you to do things, which is going to give you access to the variety that you seek. If you start stuff and then you don't finish, then you're going to find that you're getting cut off from those opportunities to do different things, and you're going to be stuck doing with whatever happens to be left. And that's not going to give you the variety you seek. So sometimes, again, it's not just emphasizing what the need is, but it's finding a better strategy for meeting that needs. And to kind of summarize this, make this quick, people ask me, how do you get teams to perform at a better level? And I say, be a better drug dealer. And I say that kind of jokingly, but the idea is all of these needs are matched up with corresponding hormones and neuroscience and biology. The adrenaline and the oxytocins and the dopamines, like they all match up to these needs. And so as a leader, you're trying to use your communication, you're trying to use the exposure to opportunities, you're trying to use the metaphors and the examples that you're doing to be able to give them the drug that they prefer and give them a drug that has less side effects. And so you're trying to engage them or enroll them in a movement or an activity or a task or project so that it's naturally activating those neurocenters and those hormones to be able to provide the energy, the boost of fuel, as it were, so that they can be more engaged and better contributors. So that's what I mean by saying that be a better drug dealer. It's not actually giving them physical drugs. That's not a good idea. So anyways, this is the model. When I'm communicating to an audience, when I'm interviewing an employee, I'm listening for these things, and then I'm customizing my language to be able to kind of speak so that it resonates more strongly with them. Those are the 6 fundamental human needs, a ton more nuance that we could go into on those, but it's such a base model that helps you be way more in tune with what's driving those around you so that you can better engage them in whatever cause that you're advocating or negotiating. Thank you for plugging in for today. I want to keep these quick, so hope you enjoyed that. We'll keep more of these coming so you have a smattering of guest episodes along with some of this leadership candy to kind of whet your appetite. Thank you for joining us today on the Unleashing Leaders podcast. Subscribe so you don't miss a moment that could be the key to your next breakthrough. Let's stay connected and contribute together by grabbing that @Unleashing Leaders handle on LinkedIn, YouTube, or your favorite network. This is Lee Scott. Keep learning, loving, and leading. Our future and our communities are counting on us.